Welcome to Story Hour, a virtual meetup hosted by Wolf and Heron.
My story is called The Havasupai Lie. 2 years ago, my friend Rob Schnackenberg was tasked with planning a group trip to go to Havasupai Falls in the Grand Canyon. And this was a special trip because it was to celebrate my birthday. And I've been to Havasupai many times in recent years, but lately it's been very hard to get into Havasupai Falls. And Rob said he had an in, so we thought he did. So I was really excited. I went on REI and I bought all the new gear and I had all my food planned. And we were hoping to leave April 30th, and it was a group of 6 of us. And so I was all ready to go and was waiting for Rob to call. So I finally gave him at the beginning of it. I said, Rob, what's going on? Like, where are we? And he goes, oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I got really busy. And then by the time I called, they were all sold out. Well, this was crushing for me because this was a special birthday for me. And I was going with my best friends and I was really excited about it. So I called my best friend, Cindy, and said, hey, well, I guess we're not going. And she said, well, hell not, we're not going. We're going to go. So she and I packed up the car on April 20th. And we left at 4:00 in the morning and drove 5 hours to the rim at the top of Havasupai Falls. So if you've never been there before, there is a long 1-hour drive on a dirt road off of the highway onto the reservation. And then the parking lot is a not very large parking lot, but is always packed. And we were able to find a parking spot and strapped on our bags, and we started down the mountain. So how this goes, this hike has always gone in the past, is there's a really, really steep 1 mile walk down switchbacks, and then it kind of spreads out into a wash. It's a very big wash because it's basically a dry riverbank for the Grand Canyon, if you can imagine. So we start walking down, and we get to the bottom of this very steep hill, and it's quite hot, and we have 4 more hours to go. And we look up and we see this man on a horse, and the horse looks a little tired, and he looks even tireder, and he's slouching, and has something in his hands. And we're kind of ignoring him, and we're kind of walking past him. And then just as we are walking past him, I'm getting a little nervous. I'm like, okay, why is he there and why is he looking at us? So he's watching us walk up, and he lifts up his body as we pass by, and he's like, ladies, do you have a reservation? And we said, yeah, we have a reservation. And he goes, oh, great, what's the name? And I look at my friend Cindy, and she looks at me, and I look at him, and I go, Schnackenberger. And he goes, what? And I said, Schnackenberger. And he goes, how do you spell that? And I said, Schnackeberer. And he goes, what? And so I said, Schneckeberger. And he looked at his list, and he looked up at me, and he looked back to his list, and he said, okay, you guys can go. So we got past that check. So that lie worked. So we walked another 5 hours. Now there's a point at which there is no turning back when you hike into the Havasupai Falls, because you do not want to be walking that trail at dark. So we thought we had it made. So we had just got to town, which is about a mile outside of the campground, and we see another man on a horse, but this time this guy is a big dude, and he is official looking, and his horse is official looking, and he comes right at us, and he's got a gun and a walkie-talkie. And same thing, ladies, do you have a reservation? And this time I do my whole lie. Yeah, Schnackenberger. And he's like, spell that slowly, please. I'm like, oh, shit. So he calls into the office, uses the name, and says, ladies, you do not have a reservation. And we were speechless. We didn't know what to do. So fortunately, we were cute enough to flirt with the guy. So he decided that we could stay. And so he gave us a tour through town, led us right to the office. And when we walked in, the lady at the office gave us passes to get in, and we were able to get through without a problem. So that's when lying helps.
Yay! Thank you, Sarah. All right. So thank you, Sarah, for sharing your story. It was just over 5 minutes, according to the clock. So that's still also perfect. Again, let's begin with, what did Sarah do well? What should she hold on to? What was powerful? What did you appreciate about the story? Molly.
I was like cracking up. I thought that was really funny. And I loved that a lot of it felt really colloquial, and like you were just having a conversation with a friend and telling the story. Like, I love that you spelt out the last name, and I sort of, even in your demeanor, could, like, you were really embodying what that would look like. And so I felt like I was kind of in that moment with you. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And something in particular that felt conversational to me was when you were saying, yeah, he looked official and his horse was official, and it just all that sounded very true to how a friend would tell a story. So I appreciated that a lot.
Thank you, Molly.
What else did Sarah do well? John.
I loved the part where you ad-libbed your fake last name and spelled it very differently on the subsequent time. It was just, it just sounded so like spontaneous and clumsy and funny. It was my favorite part of the story.
Thanks, John.
And plausible. Just
That's how it went.
What else
Thank you.
did Sarah do well? Yeah, Rob.
I really appreciate your honesty in regards to like telling the truth that you flirted your way into getting what you wanted. Takes, being honest. I appreciate that.
I'll do the last comment. I liked how you began with the dream being crushed, with your with the selling out and falling through, and then you went right into the story of being there. And I did have this thought in my head. I made a note, and I was like, maybe she doesn't need that part at the beginning, that it was sold out. Maybe it's just going to be a story about being there, and it rains a lot or something. And then it came full circle. And I think that my like the fact that I hadn't connected the dots in the middle of the story until you're confronted is, in a way, like I was able to be even more confronted because of that. And so I think that was something interesting that worked that I didn't expect. So I would potentially hold on to it, but also play around with it. Okay, and what are some things that Sarah could consider for next time, ways she could tweak the story, things to experiment with? Yes, Rob.
I think you can definitely consolidate it a bit more. I felt there was a little bit too much detail at times that we didn't need to hear. Just kind of like sum up some of the sections. Can't remember exactly what, but you could just sum it up a little bit.
And one way to approach that would be to really arrow in on what is the last point you want to make, what is the main point of the story. And I think you ended up swallowing it, like sometimes lies work out or something. But if you keep that in mind before you tell it, it might help you edit out some of those details. Did I see your hand up, Molly, or was that moving around?
Yeah, no, one part that stood out to me was when you were talking about the flirtation scene, and I would have loved to even have one of those moments where you were either sharing dialogue or like really like painting the picture of like, what did that look like? Because those are moments that like I can relate to, probably many other women can relate to, and they're really just quite funny moments. So doing similarly to how you did it with the last name, sort of weaving some of that into that moment to really like round it out would be funny.
Oh, thank you, Molly. That's a great idea.
Thank you guys for your feedback. Thank you, Sarah, for your story.
Appreciate it.
Visit wolfandheron.com to find out more about our story hours.